Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Hashtags and Habits podcast. My name is Danny White, as you know, and today I am happy to welcome Alitzel Guerrero to the podcast stage. Ali, as she is called, is a podcast strategy consultant for spiritual entrepreneurs. She hosts two podcasts herself, The Soulful Entrepreneur and Latinos Rolando. Her purpose is to help entrepreneurs create an authentic online presence that expands their business and their network. Ali, welcome to the podcast. I'm so glad you're able to join me today.
Thank you, Danny. I'm so happy and grateful to be here with you.
Awesome. Well, I would love for you to start by telling us a little bit more about yourself, your business, how you kind of got started in this online space, which has grown exponentially over the years, and kind of just where your niche is focused.
Yeah, sure. So I got started offline, as many of us, before, well, it was actually the beginning of COVID time, 2020, 2021.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I am a mindfulness coach and a mindfulness facilitator. And I got started facilitating some workshops in Europe in around 2022. The spaces started to open here in Europe, some yoga spaces, studios. But then I realized like I wanted to have more flexibility to also to live. I'm from Mexico, so I wanted to live in Mexico, but also in Europe. And I was like, well, I cannot rely or depend fully on just like locally or surviving locally with my business.
Hmm.
So I was like, I need an online strategy. So I started on Instagram and I started enrolling into all types of certifications, marketing courses. And I'm also a marketer by career, but I wanted
Okay,
to learn more
awesome.
about digital marketing. And I found some of them a little bit inauthentic to me,
Hmm.
about some practices that were not aligned with my communication style. For me, they came across as a little bit pushy or persuasive. And then I was like, okay, then maybe marketing and online marketing is not for me. And it was until I started to connect with more spiritual marketers that exists. So like people who would do marketing or teach marketing in a more spiritual way. I started to connect with them and I realized that I don't have to be on TikTok, that I don't have to dance on TikTok. And for me, that was
Hmm.
like a big relief. And my favorite format I discovered around end of 2022 was or is still video podcasting and YouTube and like longer, deeper conversations. And those are my favorite, yeah, ways of connecting with people, with potential clients. And then of course it comes the repurposing on in shorter clips on Instagram and all that. But the core of what I do most of the times is video podcasting, longer form content. And my business started to evolve. So I saw this need of also spiritual entrepreneurs wanting to market themselves in a more authentic way. And it's when I started offering them also to support them in this journey. And that's what I do today. I still have my mindfulness and visualization coaching business, but
Hmm.
I also combine it with video podcasting, consulting, and strategy. And most of my clients are therapists or coaches or just purposeful entrepreneurs who don't want to follow the typical trends, or like they don't want to feel overwhelmed by what you must be doing that most marketers tell you like you must be, or like go viral in 3 days, or these promises that, yeah, nowadays they are everywhere. But I think if you work on a one-on-one level, then you can tap into a more authentic way of communicating online.
I think that's very interesting because I do run across a good number of entrepreneurs these days that don't want to fall into the trap of being everywhere and doing all the things. And I run into a lot of people who just hate social media. They don't want to create content, they don't want to do this. And I feel that there is something to say about being intentional on these platforms and being in the digital space. I want to ask you, like, how do you define spiritual entrepreneur? Like, how do you pick that out of a very broad target audience of people who could be in any industry? And how do you decide, like, when when they are in a space to work with you?
Yeah. Wow, that's a wonderful question. Um, Okay, I will say the woo woo answer and then the most practical. The woo woo is like the most spiritual. Like they are connected. They know they are connected to something greater than them.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
you can even see that in the way that they speak. They don't speak like from ego, like my account, my likes, my followers, like what I want to sell, like so they also speak from a place of purpose and from a place of serving others and like connecting themselves with something greater, with their purpose or with the
Hmm.
universe or with God, and with serving others, providing value. So
Yeah.
that's kind of the more abstract way. And then in a more practical level, most of my clients who are spiritual entrepreneurs, they have a meditation practice or they have certain level of self-awareness. So they
Hmm.
would never, if something for some reason doesn't go as planned, they wouldn't say like, oh, you are guilty, or they would be like really like these conscious people of like, oh, let's figure it out together. And this is kind of their approach to solving something, and also to their business, how they serve their clients, how they speak and they create everything from the soul and not from the
Hmm.
ego. That's how I
Hmm.
would distinguish them. They have a connection, a deep connection with their purpose and with something greater.
That's awesome. So I think there are a good number of entrepreneurs who are trying to find their purpose or find their intentionality. I feel like during COVID and even before COVID, there were a lot of people who were just kind of like looking at the trends and looking at what's going on Instagram or what other people are doing and kind of glamorizing this entrepreneurial life, right? How do you help your clients, or how do you propose that entrepreneurs go about finding their purpose, finding a deeper meaning behind why they do what they do?
Yeah. Yeah. So I would say it all starts with a calling, and with a calling to serve. And normally it is together with some level of pain. So, like, the purpose comes from pain, like something that you have experienced, and then it's part of their story. So, most of us who have gone through something, then after some years of learning and maybe getting some coaching and certain certifications, we feel like we're in a place to give back and maybe to serve those
Hmm.
who are maybe years behind, like, or like that they are like some steps behind of us. So I would say, like, be curious and be open to spot those moments, like where do you which challenge have you overcome, and then that you feel that nowadays you're in a place of helping others who are coming after you to overcome this. So I think that would be the biggest one. And also, um, tap into the moments that you feel the most energized and the most authentic, like really that you feel joy for being there. Maybe you're helping someone on, or maybe you are, for you it's very easy, like to solve something, help, I don't know, your partner, your friends to solve something, or to listen to them. And then those moments, uh, those are really connected to your purpose too. And
Hmm.
for maybe for you they are super easy, and maybe for you are not special, but those are your gifts. So if you tap into your gifts, that's usually connected to your purpose, and you can offer it to the world as a service. So I think it's just being really, really attentive. And then there are so many tools. Like, I also took therapy in all my years of entrepreneurship, human design readings, coaches. So, like, every tool for knowing yourself better gives you
Hmm.
information about what your passion and your purpose is. Um, yeah. So I think it's being attuned to what your gifts are, and don't take them for granted.
I love that. Switching gears a little bit to your own content creation journey. You host two podcasts, which is awesome in and of itself. Some of us can barely get to one. How do you go
Crazy. I don't
about?
even know, like, why I am doing this, but I love it.
Awesome. So how do you go about making sure that your content resonates with your particular audience and it keeps them engaged? And prior to that question, did you ever switch from audio only podcast to video, or have you always done video podcasting?
Hmm. Hmm. Okay. Um, yes, at the beginning I was doing only audio on Spotify, and it was about, I wanted to record my meditations, and I wanted to have
Mhm.
a space for others to listen, because I was having clients, and they were asking like, okay, but I want to listen to your meditation that you're guiding now live, but I want to re-listen it when I'm at home.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would record it, and then I was sending them like separately, but then I was like, oh, maybe I just have a podcast of my meditation. So I started recording some of them and then publishing onto my podcast. And then I realized that if I wanted to grow my business, I needed to do more marketing, because
Mm-hmm.
people who were coming to my Spotify or Apple podcast were normally my clients, so the
Yeah.
existing people. And then I realized that with YouTube, I could have a bigger reach. So
Mm-hmm.
I moved to YouTube. So I moved to YouTube, but more to teach. I started teaching how to visualize, how to meditate, and all that. And I realized that from YouTube, like people who really didn't know me at all, they started to book sessions with me. And I was like, I can't believe this. They don't know me. How are they
Right.
trusting me? And they
Yeah.
were trusting me because, of course, they were watching a lot of videos, and then at some point they thought that they knew me, and that was amazing. So when we would jump into, for example, now that we are recording on Zoom, I feel like I know you more or less because I was watching also your YouTube videos.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
you are not
Yeah.
a complete stranger, not like, oh, I know Danny, even if I don't know you like in person. But I feel like video, it's the closest to building trust as in person, no? But of course, if we live in different continents, it's difficult to meet in person.
Yeah.
um, so yeah, that was pretty much how it started, like the shift from audio to video to have more discoverability on YouTube. And definitely, always recommend, like I have clients, I have two types of clients, like in this let's say example. One of them, they want more reach and more discoverability. Maybe they want to build an audience to sell an online course or an ebook, and I really recommend YouTube. But I have others who they already have a business running. They just want more in-depth connection with their existing client base,
Mm-hmm.
or like then they just do audio. So with them, they are completely fine with audio. But yeah, for discoverability, YouTube. And I think what has helped me a lot to have two podcasts and not going crazy, because I have one in Spanish and one in English.
Mm-hmm.
It's that I don't do a lot of editing. So I have someone who helps me with editing, but in general, I don't do a lot. So I think it's more like a mindset, and I think you are more or less on that direction, like not
Yes.
super editing, that everything has to sound perfect. And if I say then we need to cut it, it's like, but we're humans, of course we will say at some point, like
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I'm definitely on that same train as well. I think I had a podcast before for my old company that I used to work for, and we started a podcast. I was the host. I was doing interviews, things like that. Always, I think in my way of interviewing was still free flowing conversations, which I enjoy. The less scripted, the better. And I kind of carry that, process over into doing my own podcast starting last year. And it is more along those same lines. Like, we don't need a whole lot of editing. We don't need like production crew and stage and lights and cameras and action and all of that. We can have meaningful conversations. We can share our stories just like we're doing right now. Now, of course, we chop this up to go on social media and YouTube shorts and all of those places. But we do. I think the less production, the more time we can take to have conversations, right? Because that is a full-time job within and of itself. And I don't have time for that, right? Um, I want to ask you about YouTube and doing video podcasting or video anything, video content creation, and how do you overcome like the fear, or did you have any fear of like just showing your face online? Did you have any fear behind that? I know that's one of the challenges that I speak to a lot of people, and they're like, I don't want to show my face. And even before this podcast, I did not want to I didn't care to show my face either. Like, just open up your laptop, start talking, and you'll be fine, right? But I do think that there is a connection that happens when people are able to see you and hear you at the same time. Um, how can people overcome that fear of like being
Mm.
in front of the camera rather than behind it?
Fear of being seen. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, that was a big one. Fear of being heard and fear of being seen, especially because I was creating content in English and my English is not
Hmm.
on a native level. So I was always talking down to myself, like, yeah, you are not pronouncing this. No one is going to take you seriously. Like, it's better maybe to speak in Spanish, but I also didn't feel comfortable. So, like, it was really stressful for me. So I took baby steps. First, I used to publish on Instagram static posts, then short videos, then and then the longer videos. So it was like baby steps for me. And for me, what like the mindset shift that changed everything was that because I'm selling coaching and I'm selling consulting. So for whoever who's selling that, it's like people anyways will jump into a Zoom call with you.
Hmm.
So they will see you, no?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then they will see it's better if they see you earlier than later.
Hmm.
Because so my concern was like, what if I have beautiful Instagram posts and then someone goes and books a call with me and then in the Zoom call, that this is super stupid, but that was my thinking process.
Yeah.
Then they will be disappointed by how I look and by how I sound in real life. Then I was like, okay, then I will do it before. And I started to really publish just everything like on YouTube. Like, of course, I planned the structure. So the content was good, but the delivery was not so good, to be honest. And I still think that today I have a lot to improve on my English and on my storytelling. But my intention is to help others. So
Yeah.
I'm really connected with, and we go back to the purpose. I'm really connected to that. Plus, also, like, it's like a Zoom call. You have a Zoom calls with your clients, just record
Hmm.
them. And just,
Yeah.
I know the publishing part is like the tricky one, but it's like, it's a Zoom call. Just think that it's a Zoom call and that's it. You don't have to say, like, oh, hey guys, welcome to my. I never managed that, to be honest, like a YouTuber or influencer.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
maybe that's for other generations. I don't know how old are you, but for me, it never came like so easy. The being super like this or recording in the streets or dancing, these kind of things for me, they were super not authentic. So for me, was like, oh, I prefer this, what we're doing right now. This is so natural. Or if I have solo episode on my podcast, I always tell them like, oh guys, remember that this is not super edited, so I might make mistakes. And with doing those statements, I feel calmer. And I think they don't even
Right.
care, but I feel calmer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times people don't care, and they're not even like paying attention to that level of information, right? But when we point it out, it kind of makes them also think, right? It makes the audience think and say, oh, yeah, she doesn't have a big production or she doesn't have all these things, but she is giving me useful information that I can use in my business or use in my life. And I feel like that's where the impact and the intentionality behind creating content comes from. Um,
Yeah.
a lot of entrepreneurs since launching my podcast, I've had a good number of business owners to ask me about creating their own podcasts. um, and for some people my first inclination is don't create a podcast because it requires a certain level of consistency, and it also requires you to be okay with the imperfection, because you're not
Yeah.
going to get it like you're not going to get it right on the first try. I think this is now my 40th something episode like with you. And
Wow.
you're
Uh-huh.
not going to get it like it's not going to be 100% perfect. There's always, and if you're a creative like I am, you're always going to find something that's going to be it. You could have improved this, you could have had this, you could have got a
Yeah.
better mic, you could have
Yeah.
had your hair in a different way, like you could have
Yeah.
done so many things. When people ask you, is it a good idea for me to start a podcast? Like, what is your answer to them?
Hmm. I think it depends, but if they really, really, really have the calling, like I want to use my voice and I'm ready to embrace imperfection and use my voice because Instagram story is not enough for me. I need
Mhm.
more depth with my audience. I will say like, yes, let's embrace it. But if they are like, yeah, no, I'm super new and I don't know if I should go on this and that, then I would say like, no, because then you won't be able to be consistent and to hold it in the long run. Like probably first
Yeah.
of all, you need to get in place other things like I don't know, do you have your offer in place, your website? blah blah blah. So I also noticed that with my clients, and that was a mistake I made when I started selling podcasting services. It was too
Hmm.
early for early stage entrepreneurs. It's not their priority for many of
Yeah.
them. They
Yeah.
get started with other
It's
things.
revenue.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's money. We need to make money.
Exactly. It's money. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
I changed my messaging too, because I was saying like, yeah, you can land clients through your podcast, and you can, but it's not like tomorrow. You won't see
Hmm.
that like the day after, right? So,
Yeah.
and I've done that on YouTube mostly, and they keep coming from content of like a year ago, but it was not from one day to another.
Yeah.
So if you really want cash flow, then probably you need other type of like attending to events or Instagram or other type of networking. But podcast is like a longer term game, which is amazing. I think it's amazing. But it's for other type of entrepreneurs who are on their next level. Also, it's like for those who are ready to speak, like for
Hmm.
a longer time, that they are so into their topics. And I see it very connected for like, yeah, maybe entrepreneurs who have been in business for some years and now they want their next level on, I want a mic. Maybe they also want to rehearse like their speaking skills. They want to
Hmm.
start going to public speaking events, or maybe they want to build a bigger audience to sell their books. For those type of entrepreneurs, I think podcasting is amazing. And also for networking, like what we're doing right now. But yeah, if you are like in survival mode, your first years in business of like, as you said, like I need cash, probably no.
Not a good idea to start with a podcast.
Probably not. Or unless you want to create a lot of content. That's the beauty of it. Like you can also
Yeah.
record like 30 minutes of a podcast, and then you have content for the month for Instagram.
Hmm.
But then you need to manage to speak like properly for those 30 minutes. So yeah.
Exactly. Absolutely. So you talk a lot about content repurposing as part of like your podcasting and video strategy. Let's do a little impromptu coaching session while we're doing this. So you probably have seen like how I repurpose some of the podcast interviews,
Hmm.
like chopping up the videos, putting the full length video on YouTube. Of course, the audio goes out to all of the platforms, chopping up the videos and putting them on social media. um how do you define repurposing? And like, if you were to take my podcast and say, okay, what you're doing is like the base level, like how do we elevate this and make it better? Like what would be your like strategy to do that?
Okay. I think you are doing amazing.
Thank
And I
you.
think the most important is that the essence and the core of what you do, it's done by you. So like your voice, it's Danny in person, in presence, and then the
Hmm.
rest, the repurposing can be done by AI, by an editor, by a virtual assistant. So I think if the core of what you are doing, of what you are recording, like these long episodes, it's you with your
Hmm.
energy, with your authentic communication, then that's already a win. And I haven't gone that in depth into your Instagram, but I just checked like YouTube Shorts. I think you're also doing good, but yeah, I think it's a good balance between having guests, but also if you want to also build your authority, you as a CEO or consultant, it's
Hmm.
also nice the solo episodes. So showing you in the short clips how your expertise is.
Okay.
And I think also what it's important is to, or I've seen that on my Spanish podcast, when my guests let me tag them. So like like,
Mm.
oh, Danny and Ali. So like
Hmm.
it's published in both. It's when
Yeah.
I get the biggest reach. So when the guests really publish that also in their feeds. So I also learned that with the guests that you put them on the spotlight, like you give them also
Yeah.
a lot of audience. So it should be like a reciprocal relation.
Hmm.
And I used to get mad. I used to get pissed off when like my guests wouldn't reshare it. I was like, oh, all this work and you didn't reshare. But then I think with the time you get better at inviting the right people, no?
Yeah, for
And
sure.
yeah, part of that it's also that be very strategic. It's not like being like taking advantage, but like being like really with the energies, like you give but you also receive, like they also give something. Like in this
Hmm.
case it will be like they also resharing your shorts. I don't know how is it with your guests. I think your guests also are really open to share and all that, so
Hmm.
that's really important.
I
And
think I
also
will say
I,
I think
uh
we send them the we send the promo images and the clips for them to share and reshare and
Okay.
tag us. I think though we don't do a good enough job of showing or telling them why it's important to reshare. Like, I think
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, let's say that like you're consulting in like manufacturing or whatever. You'll do the interview and you'll share your thought leadership, and it's like, okay, another thing on your to do list. Okay, I did that interview, right? But they don't understand the repercussions or the consequences of like actually sharing, because you can then cross promote and your audience can then learn about you and can then follow you and then buy your stuff. Like, it's a reoccurring effect. And I think we don't do a good enough job of like saying, okay, this is why you should reshare. Yes, share and post and whatever, but this is why you should be doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, or also I've seen like a good practice of one friend of mine who also has two podcasts, and she does that amazingly. We have recorded that several times together. She says like, "Oh, by the way, your podcast episode is going live tomorrow, so you support us with the resharing." And or she tells you like when it's gonna go live, so
Mm-hmm.
you are like it's like a heads up for you also to share. And also what I've noticed, and this is really like fresh information, other podcasters or like inviting other people who are also really vocal and who
Mm-hmm.
are not shy to share.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like they are like, wow, I was invited to the podcast, and they are so happy for that. I
Yeah.
think those are really cool people also too. And also, yeah, like that their clip that you choose from them make them proud about themselves. So like
Mm-hmm.
it's not like yeah, just polishing or like, but maybe grabbing a good clip of them that they feel like, oh, I look good, or like maybe not a clip that they are talking about something maybe they are ashamed. So maybe
Mm-hmm.
just a clip that make them shine.
Yeah.
That's also reshareable. But yeah, I'm also in the process of learning completely, of testing and all that. But I think these are the ones. But the best, yeah, it's when you tag. I think now you can even tag 3 or 4 people in one post. Those are with the
Absolutely. Yeah.
highest reach. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. I want to switch gears slightly and talk about the balance between content creation as an entrepreneur and doing all of the other tasks that are required to run a business as an entrepreneur. Like, what productivity tips or just suggestions do you have for people who are generally busy and they're wearing a lot of hats? And for them, and sometimes content creation is just like another thing on the list to check off. Like, what are some of the tips that you would recommend?
Okay. Mm, for me, it's like defining first what's your genius zone.
Hmm.
Um, in my case, I really love recording. I like writing and I like coaching. And I always journal on this. I always have a journal with me and then I write down. I always ask myself, what's my genius zone today? What do I feel like? So normally that's it. And then what's not my genius zone? And normally my not genius zone is related to more like editing or more like this back and forth with some suppliers or like this messaging or with potential customers. What's not my genius on, for example, terms of like accounting. So then you can decide if you can allow yourself to hire some help or get some help, not necessarily just hire one person, but like maybe having a freelancer or someone who you can trust and train.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's one thing. And then the other, I really think that it's also related to overthinking, because sometimes when we are perfectionists and then we overthink, you can take the whole day rewatching a video and then just not publishing it because you think it's not good enough. And that takes a lot of time. Really,
Yeah.
being
Yeah.
perfectionist or overthinking, I think just get it done and trust in you. Like really. So what I normally do is like I divide my days or like I order my days with like notes, and it's like three to four things every day I get done. Then I put the checklist. And then I also know like more or less in this month what I'm working on, what's my priority. So then on the day, and then that prevents me from falling in perfectionist traps, because if one item was like publish a short or I don't know, answer to that email or like reach out to that brand sponsor, it's like you have to do it today, that email is going to take 5 minutes, to be honest.
Yeah.
Why is
Yeah.
it taking you 4 hours? It's
Yeah.
not that the email is difficult to write, it's that your mind, it's tricking you. So like, I think it's to learn to take shorter time with overthinking. Shorter.
I love it. Yeah,
Yeah.
love it. What inspires you to continue your journey?
Beautiful, beautiful question. These moments with people like you, other communicators, creators, entrepreneurs, they inspire me. So when I feel like I'm like really, like, I come from advertising and being in media for almost 10 years.
Hmm.
I had a 9 to 5 for almost 10 years. And of course, every month it was like my paycheck. And my 9 to 5 was not that bad as everyone said, like, oh, my 9 to 5 sucked. Like it was fun in a way. And sometimes it's like, oh wow, what would I do if I wouldn't be in my business? I've
Yeah,
never been as fulfilled as I am today. So like I cannot go back to create for someone else, of course to my clients, but not to like corporate. So when I feel like unfocused or like yeah uninspired, then I would reconnect with my vision, with my purpose, and I would watch video podcast actually, like of someone who is inspiring, like okay, this is amazing. And normally what I do is I pause the video podcast and I keep going. So yeah, probably I will
that's
watch
awesome.
this conversation too if one day I feel like I'm tired or know why, or things are uncertain. So that's
Yeah,
my struggle today, like with uncertainty and like lack of structure. And I'm working a lot with my coach on this one. I still deep down, even if it's been years that I left corporate, deep down, I still have the need of having a structure and having certain level of of certainty
for
that we don't
sure.
have
Yeah.
as business
Yeah.
owners. You can make projections and plans, but no, it's never that certain.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. If you can take a few minutes to just share your most valuable advice for entrepreneurs and small business owners, that would be great. And then where can everyone find you, learn more about what you do, and possibly work with you?
Yeah, I love creative visualizations. I learned the Jose Silva method. It's a method that actually it was founded by a like a Tex-Mex guy called Silva. And I learned that 4 years ago. And since then, I visualize almost every day. So I close my eyes and then I tap into the alley of the future. So, like
Hmm.
myself of 2025 in this case. And then I see what I'm doing, with whom I am surrounded, what kind of projects I'm doing. So I would say, like, to entrepreneurs who are listening or watching, like, really learn to visualize. Close your eyes and see yourself from the future. Do that meditation or visualization and tap into that, and then just yeah, like the baby steps towards that vision. Maybe you need a coach. That's why we would need like hiring Danny or me, but like really, because sometimes it's not that clear. If you don't have experience, you don't know which are the steps, right?
Yeah,
But tap into the vision and then get some help to really work towards that vision. So I think that's the most valuable piece I can share now.
absolutely. Visualization is very powerful, creating that mental picture
Mhm.
of who you want to be or where you want to be or the people that you want to have around you.
Exactly.
It can really set you on a path towards focusing on something that you might not have been focusing on before. I think a lot of times we all have like things we want to do or goals we want to accomplish and have no clue as to how to get there. But having that picture in your head and reminding yourself of that picture, refreshing your memory of that picture is very important.
Exactly. Yeah.
Where can people find you?
Oh, you can Google. You can Google me, or on Google you can just type in soulful entrepreneur, or you can just Google Alitzel Guerrero. But I know that's difficult. It's difficult for Americans to type in that, but soulful entrepreneur. And if you speak Spanish, then Latinos brillando. So that's that's the second one. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ali, for joining me today. This has been a great conversation. I'm excited to see all of the things that you do now and in the future for yourself and for your clients. And I would love for everyone to go and listen to The Soulful Entrepreneur. It's a very good podcast. It has a lot of information, and you get a lot of Ali's personality through that podcast as well. So love the content. And yeah, we will see you all in the next episode next Tuesday. And Ali, we look forward to launching this episode soon.
Yeah, thank you, Danny. It was fun.
Thank you so much.